director of Unpossible, the coordinators of the RPM Challenge. It's a creative challenge to anybody to record music in the month of February. And this year it's based out of my hometown, Newfoundland, St. John's, Newfoundland, and I'm very happy to bring it to you all. We have about 1,700 participants have signed up so far. So this is we're at the kind of crucial time in the month where some people are going to make it, and some people are on the fence about whether or not they're going to actually succeed and get to the finish line. But we're here today to talk to a few RPMers about how their projects are going and what they've been up to, and give you a few words of encouragement about for your project, and hopefully convince you to get your chin up and submit something for this year, because we don't want you to miss out. Yeah, I guess we'll introduce people. I guess maybe the first question that we'll ask right now is if you could say, here I'll start. I'm a great host. This is like professional television right now. Amelia, yeah, how are you?
Hi. Was there a question?
There was no question yet, but I just wanted to say hi. Where are you located?
I'm in Brooklyn, New York, and I don't know. We're in the middle of this we aren't in the lockdown. You guys are in the lockdown.
Yeah.
But we've had a lot of COVID cases, so I'm indoors along with everyone else in the middle of February. Right
by your rug, in front of your virtual rug.
I'm staying warm here because we've had snow for like 2 weeks straight or something.
Oh, really? Yes, right. Of course.
Yeah.
It's been quite the show down across the states all week.
Yeah. RPM's a great thing to be spending time on right now, so I'm sure everyone agrees.
Yeah. Monica, where are you located?
Hi. I am located in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. And it's also snowing here. I just looked out the window and it's snowing again. We've had a bit of snow lately too. Frustratingly. But I'm also happy to be working on an RPM at this time.
Lindell.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good. How you doing?
Great. Where are you located? I don't even know.
No, I'm actually in Texas.
Okay.
So
that's the hard. I mean, that's where a lot of the snow problems have been happening right now.
Yeah, we have just completed our second day of actually above freezing temperature, so I can look outside and see only patchy bits of white stuff in shadow.
Wow.
But we have just thawed out. It was interesting trying to get food yesterday because everybody was out at restaurants. So like everywhere there was food being served, there was like 1,000 people. I mean, just everywhere.
Wow. That's amazing. Have you had any power issues or anything?
Personally, we did not. We lost water for a couple of days. But
that's tough, though.
Yeah. We had to melt snow to flush the toilets.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a new sensation. It's been a strange kind of year so far.
I mean, I could spend the entire hour talking to you about this whole scenario, but like, do you have like heating in your house? Like, I haven't really talked to anybody who's been in that scenario.
Where our situation is unique, we do have central heating, but in this house, there's a thermostat problem, so we don't use it because it runs continually. It won't shut off. So we have space heaters and little zones in the house. I've got one in my room, there's one in the bedroom across the hall, one in the living room. We had to have a small one for the kitchen to put under the sink, so the pipes didn't freeze because the pipes are from the outside of the house.
Right.
So we had to do that. That was interesting. The water that we get now, we can't drink.
Right.
We had to boil it before we can use it for anything.
That is wild. That is, huh? Yeah, well, maybe we could do a follow up and do in depth about what your situation is. But
Sure.
let's talk about the RPM today. Karen,
Sure.
Karen Moni, how are you, Karen?
Hi, Helen. I'm good.
And where are you located? I know you're not doing an RPM this year, but I know you've done an RPM in the past, and I wanted to have you on to talk just generally about that, about your experience with RPM, and maybe convince you to do an RPM this year somehow. Maybe.
Right now, I'm in Ottawa, Ontario, is where I'm located, and I don't know. I think that RPM is something. It's a good project. Because it's not about being perfect, right? It's about getting something done. So I guess I'm here to encourage other people to get on it and do it, and maybe I might hop on board. We'll see.
See, the magic of RPM is already working on you. Like there are 4 other people on the call convincing you. No pressure. So Amelia, can I talk to you about your music? What you've been working on lately? What's on the go?
Yeah. So I guess this year I wanted to do like one really long song, like 20 minutes long. And I wanted it to be, sort of like, experimental and minimal. And so it's turned out to be, I think I have like 21 minutes now, and there's like 6 different sections to it. And I don't know, I'm into it, even if other people aren't. It's been really surprising also to, I think just explore the kind of sounds that I can get out of like the equipment that I already have. So it's been a good month already.
Had you you've done RPMs before? Had you worked with other people before, or
Yeah,
had access to other equipment?
I did a bunch of albums early on. I guess the first time I did it was in like 2008, and
Wow. Yes.
and I had like singer songwriter kind of albums, which was really fun. It was called the Misconnections. And then I wanted to sort of break out of the format that I had been working in. So that's where I am now.
I saw you post quite frequently on the Discord, which is great and then you post some demos of what you're actively working on. The name of your project is Alouette, is that right?
Yeah, that's my band name. I don't know what the name of the project is yet. I have to figure that out this week, but it'll basically, I'm like, should I pull open my notes? I don't have to do that right now. But I think the album was really about like healing in a way, emotionally. And so it starts out, which makes it kind of narrative, right? Once you know that. And so I guess the first half of it really is like, there's a lot of feedback on it. And, which is fun because there's a couple of points where my voice gets really distorted. And then the second half, it gets, I don't know. I guess what's going on is that it just starts to shift and become more sort of demanding, and there's a lot of high frequencies. And then the final part of it, I actually like sing on. So, and that I was struggling with that because it was like this sort of clash between like the old and the new stuff I had been recording. So like, if I had something with like lyrics, it started to fall into more like a singer-songwriter kind of format, and I was like fighting it, and I fought it for like 4 days or 5 days or something.
Like you're resisting going into that territory, or?
Well, I was going into it, and I was like, because this is how I'm used to writing something with lyrics, you know, and I know I could do that. You know, and so it's like, how do I break out of that? You know, and so it'll probably just be a normal song, you know, to everybody else, you know, but I'm gonna remember that struggle.
Right, the behind the scenes, the stories behind all of these little bits, or the albums or records or singles or whatever. There's so many stories involved in the RPM, like often technical headaches or stuff like that, but all kinds of interpersonal stuff, like real stories happen. Monica, I know personally that you have many stories, many technical woes.
Many
and
technical. And the funny thing about being on lockdown is that this year I've got to do all the recording myself. So I'm learning how to use my Zoom H4 handy recorder, which was a gift. And it's challenging, but like I don't think I was aiming to learn how to multi-track and things like that. I think I might aim for that for next year, because it took me like 3 days to learn how to turn it on. So, you know, I'm sort of taking it slow, but it's funny you don't think about that, because every year I collaborate with a bunch of people who happen to have microphones usually. So I never had to think about recording it myself. Sometimes I would do it on my iPhone if it was like the night before or whatever. So this year I have to do all the recording myself. So I'll send it to people and they might add, you know, some background vocals over it or something. So it's a good learning opportunity. And I've been saying for a long time, I'm going to learn how to do it. And then I never did. And now I'm forced to. So life sometimes does that. But yeah, so it's going to be a little bit more stripped down this year, because it's just me and my Zoom H4. So yeah, like it's making me, I just sort of took it for granted before. I would go to someone's house or their studio and I would write the music and the song and we would record it together and they would make it sound great. And now, you know, I'm like, oh, right, I have to record it as well. So, but I'm learning slowly but surely. So that's, again, it's another benefit to the RPM.
Yeah, you make a beautiful album every year, let me say, and you're always so worried about the technological part of it. Like I know I see often posts about, you know, how to do things, and you always figure it out. So
I always figure it out. And I will say I got to thank a lot of people on my social media and stuff. I'm sure people have like unfollowed me because I'm very vocal about how technology is difficult for me. I'm sure people have. I totally get it. But in my defense, I always get it done. Usually because someone is like, you know, here I will show whatever. I find a way to make it happen, and it might mean that I have to post on Facebook about it and get lots of help. But yeah, and the other thing is, like, this is like a small thing, but I used all my free SoundCloud moments, so I'm now on Bandcamp, and I'm getting used to it. But so far, so good. It's been great. But yeah, that was another thing. I'm learning about the difference between WAV files and MP3s, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So
right, Bandcamp requires WAV files to be uploaded.
Yes.
Yeah.
But now I've learned how to convert them, and the handy dandy Zoom records in WAV, so I don't have to worry about it anymore. But these are all things that, like, I never would know if it wasn't for this RPM process. So that's really amazing.
Yeah, totally. Liddell, how is this year going for you? Like, what's your project? How's it going?
Yeah.
I get it.
There's a project going. I just want to, you know, kind of hit some things before I get into it. I actually remember the missed connections from when I got started. It's interesting you mentioned that. Wait, no, I don't remember seeing that name in a list of people that I didn't get a chance to meet everybody back then. But hello,
Here we are now.
here we are now. To go to Monica's point, yeah, every year I've done a RPM, I've learned something. So I definitely want to hit on the point that it's not always about the destination. This is one of those things where the journey is almost more important than the destination, because every year you're going to pick up something, you're going to learn something, you're going to do something you've never done before. You're going to stretch outside your comfort zone into new areas of, I didn't know I could do that. I didn't know I was supposed to do that. So for me, I always buy new gear every year for some reason. It just always seems to work out that way. So you see, I've got my new headphones on. They're very fashionable. They go with everything. And so, which is, I didn't think I'd be able to do it this year because I have no gear whatsoever. I've got no interfaces. I've got the one USB mic, and I'm having to use purely samples, which is uncomfortable for me. I'm used to doing, I have an electric guitar back here, but I have no amps, no cables, no nothing. My basses are all gone. I sold all those when money got tight. So to this year, we're going to have to do more of a Jesus Jones Depeche Mode kind of sounding techno thing, which is something I haven't done in a long time. So it's going to sound very 80s, which is okay. I mean, that was my era. I was in high school in the 80s, so I know it very, very well. But it's not what I'd like to do typically. I'm more of a hard rock guy. You can see it by my face. It just screams hard rock at you right now. I know it does. So in that aspect, it's again a year where it's like it's not gone the way I want it to go. It never does. You start out going this way, and then 2 days in, you realize, okay, that's not going to work at all. I'm going to have to go over here, and that's just the nature of RPM. It morphs as you go along, and at the end of the month, you end up somewhere you didn't think you're going to end up, but it's still good because it's still a creative endeavor that allows us to be who we are, where 11 months out the year sometimes we don't get to.
How much time a year do you spend on the RPM? I mean, this is a good question for everybody, but
it's a loaded question because all of the projects I've done, it's like there's an initial push. I get done with a quote unquote requirement during February, but I keep working on it throughout the rest of the year because I am a perfectionist by nature. And so it's never perfect in a month. It's usually just kind of a sketch at the end of the first month. And then somewhere maybe about May or June, it's actually the way I want to hear it. I'll turn it in anyway, but as far as what I like to hear, yeah, it's going to be 3 or 4 months past this before I get to where it sounds like I think it ought to sound.
Totally. And with that, I'll move on to Karen. Karen, you participated 1 year. It feels like so long ago now, doesn't it? 2017.
Yeah, 2017. That's not. Yeah, I know that's not too long ago, but there's so much that has happened, because I had just right after the RPM, I was taking a diploma at MUN, right? Memorial University in Newfoundland. And I was taking this program that linked me to theater and television and acting, that kind of thing. And that just sort of sucked me away from the world of music. And I started writing. I went from writing songs to writing scripts, which is crazy. And that's kind of where I am now. That's kind of the season that I'm now. So I don't know, maybe I'll go back to writing songs again one day, but I like to let things take shape organically. Like I don't like to push things, So I still have my guitar and I haven't touched it, but every now and then I do think about it. I would like to pick it up and just sit down and just go revisit those days of songwriting. Because for me, it's a way of expression. It's a way of releasing, those emotions that you keep bottled in. And and just a way to process it and make sense of the world you're in, of what's going on around you and things, you know. So I don't know, like it's something I like to do, but it's just it doesn't feel like it's the time. So maybe the time will come. We don't know. Sorry, this my alarm is on.
No.
It's so yeah. So I really don't know.
We were talking off before the stream started that could be someone's RPM this year. Like that someone could record a fake fire alarm sound and have that as their album, submit that as their project. Anyway,
Yeah.
I wanted to add that in there at the right moment. But Karen, I know that you've moved on to film in a big way because I don't know, we've worked together on that through the Nickel Film Festival here in St. John's. But how does so do you feel like your music, like you're working on music, led you into making films in some way, or is that, am I trying to draw too broad a connection?
I think it did in a way. Like, I mean, I've always been writing from a young age. I'm sure most of us have been, right? We've always had that. So for me, it's not been about the medium necessarily, but just the outlet and the platform, right? That's available to tell a specific story. So yes, in a way, because for me, it's more like, is this the right medium to tell this story? Is this the right platform and the right place? So that's why I say, like, I might go back to writing songs, but if I do have a story and I feel like, okay, this might not be right for film, but it could work in a song form, you know. So I'm always open-minded and flexible when it comes to creating, and it's not about like sticking to one thing, like putting myself in the box, as you would say, right? I just like to let myself create in whatever form that's available and dare to tell that, appropriate for that story, if that makes sense.
Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, can you take me back to 2017? What it was like recording your album back then for you?
Well, it was a scary phase. It was very scary because I'm also a perfectionist, and I had previously, before that, I had recorded in studio a couple of songs. So for me, having to do this having to strip down and do it with just the basic was very hard for me to jump into, and it did take me a while to do it. I think I did it probably like 1 or 2 weeks before it was due, and it was just, I had to sit down and just push myself to do it, and just not focus on like the end, not focus on the destination, the end product, but on the journey and re-exploring, because there were songs that I had written before, but I've not really picked them up. I'd not really looked at them and played them, or played with them, or spoken them out. I hadn't vocalized them, you know, to anybody else. So for me, it was just something I had to do for myself, to get myself to just get it out there in whatever shape or form that it would take.
Right.
I was really happy with the end results. I learned a lot about recording, you know, at home. And I think that's what people should focus on, really, is about just getting it done. You know, it doesn't mean that you have to stop working on it after the RPM. Like, it's an ongoing process. You know, sometimes it takes years. It takes a while to get your craft to the point where you can be like, okay, I'm gonna let it go. You know, so, and even then, it's not necessarily perfect, like 100% perfect.
It's terrifying. Deadlines are terrifying. But I know they're magic. There's some magic in a deadline, or else I think, for personally, without deadlines, I wouldn't get anything done. I don't think. Amelia, is that, yes, you're nodding your head. Everybody's nodding
I
their head.
live for deadlines.
Really? You live for deadlines? Why? Why?
I can't get anything done without them, actually. Or, it's like I think when you're doing creative work and you're not, you're not in school anymore, right? So it's like you don't have projects and deadlines and someone breathing down your neck. You have to create that for yourself. And, and so I think actually during the pandemic, that's been more difficult for me because there's a lot less going on, with, I guess different arts nonprofits and things. So usually, there's a way to find that structure through like working with other people or other organizations, and so I think during the pandemic, it's been like, okay, how do we keep this going? How do we create, really the I guess sort of a frame for creating it where you'll actually finish something, so get that peer pressure from somewhere, I don't know if you folks have any feelings about that.
Totally. Totally. Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you have the never-ending project.
Yeah, things do need to end. Because so much of it is like putting it out there too. It's like you can sit around in your house and make something, and then what? How far do you want to go with it? And that's a lot of time. It's like an equal amount. It's more time, I think, to put something in the world than to create it initially.
Do you you've taken part in many RPMs. What do you do outside of the RPM? Do you do music, or do you do art, or is RPM your sole outlet?
No, I'm an artist. I work with, I guess, new media interactive artwork, and so I do actually some sound art as part of that. And I actually did RPM before I started all of that, so I feel like, in a sense, it sort of gave me a sense of how to create that structure, for creative projects going forward. So even, if it's a different medium, it's like you're still dealing with a creative process. You're still up against yourself, trying to make something. And so all of those feelings are the same, and then of course, finding a way to have it live outside of your house. So much of that is like finding a community. And community is a big part of it. And that's been the nicest thing about RPM. And, why I'm in the Discord all the time in this pandemic, it's like, you learn so much from each other.
Totally. Have you, I mean, this year it's harder for people to collaborate in some ways. So is it different? Monica, maybe I'll ask you this question. You've already talked about how you're not able to work with other people, but how important is it to you to work with other people when you make your music, or is this completely out there?
Well, I love working with other people because I am not much of an instrumentalist. So I really love having, but like when I say instrument, like I just love, you might have a song, I might, have a song, I think, oh, that's kind of like slow or whatever. Like for instance, Curtis Kilfoy is one of my favorite people. Like I'll go over and we'll record it together, and he'll say, let me take a crack at it and I'll send it to you and see what you think. Okay. And then like, I'll get it. And it's like this dance pop, something I never would have come up with on my own in 1,000 years. And it's like this really cool thing that, so it's and he would probably never work on, like a little folk song. So it's like the combination of two or more, whatever, artists coming together and creating something like brand new. Like, I really like that aspect of it. So I'll get a mini bit of that this year. Not quite the same, but a little bit. But yeah, it's helped. I really like the collaboration process. But I've never written a song with anyone. That's the only thing I've never collaborated on. But the recording part of it, I really like it. So I will miss that this year. But like I say, it's making me learn some things. But I will miss, and there's just something fun. Like, I just have sometimes, like, I'd go to someone's house and I'd be all anxious and drink lots of coffee and just that fun kind of manic energy of getting it done and, being in someone's recording studio. It's nice.
Yeah, I mean, Lindell, did you collaborate with other people previously, or is it usually a solo effort for you every year?
It's always solo.
Always solo.
Yeah, it's I've invited people. A lot of the people who are not in RPM don't always get RPM.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, what's it for? Is this a contest? Is there a prize? Is there money? And it's like, no, that's not at all it. It's just a matter of, coming together as a group, as a community, as Amelia was talking about, that having other people you can bounce ideas off of, while you're, going through this process. And they look at me with this blank stare on their face like, yeah, I don't know what you're doing. So no. So every year I had to upgrade my studio because I realized the last year I didn't have this thing that I wish I had. So like I said, every year I buy something to the point where I actually had a fully functional multi-track studio in my house at one point. But, that was 100 years ago from now. So, and that's difficult because the idea of trying to run it all yourself is daunting. And sometimes very clumsy. Especially trying to do multi-track, because you got buttons here, you got buttons over there, you got a thing over here, you got a twist, you got a thing you're going to push there at exactly the right time, and then you don't get it done exactly the right way. You come back to this thing, go, oh God, what happened there?
Right, but you love it.
I do. I'm not going to lie about it, because it's like, okay, all right, now we're going to try it again. Okay, beep, 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 and go. And you go through the thing, and when you get it right, you're like, yeah, you scream, you run around the room for 5 minutes, just for a little 30-second piece. So you're trying to get exactly right. Yeah, the elation you get at the end of when you finally get the way you want it is undescribable. But that's why we create in the first place, is to let that kind of thing out. And we never get that reflection back the same way doing anything else. That's my experience.
Yeah, it's okay. So I mean, we're coming to the point in the month where people are just panicking and like just throwing up their hands and like, oh, I hate my music. I hate what I've made already. If I've started at all, I haven't. Some people haven't started at all, but they've wanted to do it. Like, what do we say to these people? I don't know. I don't know where to start, but
I'll do it.
Yeah, go for it, Lindell.
There's one golden song in this week, at least one. You're going to have a song you didn't see coming. You had no idea where it came from. You're not even sure how it came together. It's going to fall in place, just like putting together a sandwich. Bread, cheese, boom. And you're going, wow, that was what just happened. I just made a song that's really good, and it didn't take a lot of effort to make it. And you're not even sure where it started or how it happened, but it's just going to happen. So that one song, I'm telling you, in this week is out there. It's waiting for you to find it. So there.
How do you know, like, okay, so you come up with this one song and you're like, maybe it's garbage.
No, you know. You
do? Okay.
Yeah, you see.
Do you always know? I don't know. I have extreme self-doubt here.
I see Monica's face. No, you know. Because when the song will tell you what it wants. And that's a phrase I've learned over the course of many years. When you have something there that doesn't fit, the song doesn't sound right until you pull that piece out. That, oh, okay, now it works. But when you put a song together and everything lays down the way it's supposed to, you go, oh, okay, that's what I've been trying to do all month. But now I finally got that really good one that I go, yeah, that's why I came in the first place. So trust me, it's always at the last week of the month you're going to find that one really good one. It's like, okay, this, how come I couldn't do this all month? Why did it take this long to get here? You know, but it's coming. I guarantee it's coming.
Karen, I want to put you on the spot and just say creatively, just how do you get to the point where you trust your instincts? How do you how do you find?
I think it's important to know your process because everyone is different, right? And everyone processes differently. So for me, for instance, I like to work alone first. I usually like to find, I would always have my spots that I would go to, you know, like a sanctuary that I would create, that every time I go there, I know that I'm going there to create. I know that I'm going there to self-reflect. And that is sort of my process. It's all about self-reflection and like Lindell says, like, you know when it's when it's right, when you've hit that right note, right? You know it. So for me, yeah, I think because I always know when I'm in the wrong place and it's just not working. Like, I don't even push it. I don't even try to force it. I just try to shift things around and move things around. Maybe if I have to go out of the house, to do that, sit even on the step outside, just somewhere else until it clicks for me and the words start coming out and I'm able to connect with my inner self, if that makes sense. That's my process, and that is how I know that I'm on the right path, because I know that what is coming out is truth, is my truth. I'm being honest, right? And that's what I think is important with us, with creating, that you are honest. Don't try to copy, don't try to do what Monica is doing, don't try to do what Linda's doing. You know, that's them. We're all different. So I think it's just important that you are true to yourself. And if something's not working, be open to reach out to people if you're stuck. Like, the one song that I still listen, like, out of all the songs I did at RPM, there's just one song that I still listen to, and that's one song I had some outside help. I didn't do it on my own, and it like, I was really impressed and I fell in love with the song, with the shape that it took. So it's just knowing your process and knowing when you need help, when you're stuck. It's just knowing yourself and I don't know if that makes sense.
Totally. I mean, creativity is messy, right? So, but and knowing, you just know when it's right.
Yeah, because it's like soul searching. So you know when you've found yourself, you know when you've hit that core, that yes, okay, this is the place I've been looking for. And when you get it, you grab it, you run with it. You run with it, because then you've opened something and it just starts to flow. Once you get that, it just comes out. It just starts to flow, and you're on the right track. So that's my tip.
I find personally lowering my expectations really helps. I at the beginning of the month, I have these big dreams and I'm like, I'm gonna do all this intricate stuff and come up with so many brilliant bits, and I'm just like here sitting at the last week of the month and I haven't done anything, even though I'm coordinating the RPM. And I am just gonna maybe jam and maybe cut pieces of that up later. I don't know. Amelia and Monica, what pieces of advice do you have for people who are struggling in this moment right now?
Well, I was just thinking about, like, knowing what your own goals are. It's really hard to, like, see other people who have, different backgrounds and different goals, and and compare yourself. And I know that Ellen was talking about that in the Discord a while ago. But also, like, to boil it down and be clear about, what's the most important thing for you to get done, if that's all you've got. We're at the point now where it's like, what can we do in a week? And I shared a Lead Belly song a while ago, and no one appreciated it. But like, if you listen to these really old recordings, like what comes through, like it's not perfect. It's his voice. So, like you could have a perfect recording or not. And so maybe that's me, like, that that I want something to come through which is more human. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I think it takes a lot of guts to just, put something out there at all. Like you're gonna sit there and be perfect and be perfect and be perfect. And like people might not even care about that stuff, So yeah, I don't know, listen to some old recordings and prioritize, I don't know if that's helpful.
I think totally helpful. Monica, do you have any advice? I mean,
yeah, that is helpful. Actually, that was helpful for me too. Thank you. Yeah, don't try to be perfect. And another thing, like it's a draft, right? So if at the end of the month, you've recorded some songs or whatever, and you're like, oh, there's nothing to say that you can't re-record that song at a later date and do a different, upgrade it or whatever. But it's always going to be easier to do that if you have a recording. Like, so I know I find the deadline good for me because I'm a perfectionist in a bad way. Like sometimes it keeps me from producing stuff because I'm like, oh, it's not good, I just won't do it. So I find the RPM really good for like, you don't have as much time to think about that. Is you're like, okay, I'll just do this. And I have gone back, songs that I perform live, like I do them differently than how they're recorded, but it was easier for me to go back and edit something that was done versus just an idea that I had, So yeah, don't try to be perfect. It's for you. It's for you as an artist, and have fun. Definitely have fun.
great advice. I as the organizer, here are some ways that you can get around the anxiety. But use a pseudonym and submit it that way. That kind of, for some people, the idea of submitting under your own name or some way that people could recognize you, that might be in their way and like preventing them from actually making something. What else? There's you don't have to submit it. There's that trick where it's like you're just working to the deadline, and if you get something done and you feel like sharing it, you can share it, but there's no pressure for you to share it. And that's like a subtle shift where you're kind of just giving yourself the confidence to actually follow through and get something done. Yeah. Oh yeah, you can make a bad record. You're allowed to make a bad record. That's one of my power. That's a power move of mine, because everybody kind of wants to make a bad record. They don't want to, that is so liberating to make some bad art. Like, why not? But then inevitably you're going to have so much fun with it that I think that you'll end up with something that you really like. Anyway, so we're heading into the end of our hour here, but I just wanted to go around and ask where people can hear some of your music, and maybe some final words from everybody. So maybe Amelia, I'll start with you. Where can people find your music these days? I guess on the Discord. You're sharing on the Discord.
Yeah, because I think for this project I only have a couple of recordings, and they are on SoundCloud, but I don't. I guess I'm gonna put this up on Bandcamp when it's done. And so basically I've had this project going on for a while, and but it's been mostly like performance, and I don't have a lot of recordings that are like related to it. So this is kind of new. So I'll have new stuff on Bandcamp like next week.
The great. Anything you're angling towards doing this week as well? Like that's a good closer. What are your goals?
Just finishing it. I mean, I'm doing like the final mixing right now, and you know, I still need my title and my album art. You know, so, and the master of it, obviously. So that is all, you know, that's just work. And you know, I don't know. I feel like I'm in a good place right now, and I just gotta sit down and do all of those things. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Perfect. Monica, where can people hear your music these days? You're moving over to Bandcamp, I hear.
Yes, I moved over to Bandcamp, and I just want to tell all my beginners, if you do record on your iPhone or whatever, and it is at MP3, you go to Google and you Google MP3 into WAV file, you can find a way to convert it. Don't panic. Yeah, so I was on SoundCloud as my first 4 RPMs. If you go to SoundCloud and type in Monica Walsh, you can find me. And now I'm on Bandcamp, and I have 1 RPM on Bandcamp. And the same thing, if you type in Monica Walsh, you'll find me on Bandcamp. So SoundCloud and Bandcamp.
And what are you hoping to do in this last week? What are the specific?
I'm hoping to finish the RPM. Mm-hmm. That's my number 1 goal. I have 5 songs recorded. So I have to write 5 songs and record them.
No problem.
No problem. I'm sticking with the original. I'm sticking with the 10 song format because I'm being unoriginal. But I think it's really cool that there's different. Like, I think that's really cool. Just FYI.
Liddell, where can people find your music? I mean, or will there be a future place where people can find your music?
I'm still working that out. Actually, I had a hard drive failure a few years ago, so I've lost about 20 years worth of material. Just whoosh, and it's gone.
Wow.
So we'll see how that goes. So yeah, a lot of my old stuff that doesn't exist anymore. So we'll see what I can dig up and put together. I'm moving toward Bandcamp as well. I just opened an account up. I don't have anything posted out there yet, but we'll see how that goes. This week I've got to do some vocals because I've got music laid and I've got 0 vocals done on 10 songs. So like, okay, I actually haven't written any parts for vocals yet, so I've got to actually write it and then put it on in the machine here. So, but the upside of that is, like I said, I'm more with it, going with a more 80s format. I'm not doing anything existential this time. There's no emotion. I'm not doing any of that kind of thing this year.
Right.
So I'm going more poppy. So I could talk about shoes or celery or, whatever. And that's going to be more lightweight than what I typically do. But yeah, for this time around, that's kind of the thought process.
Well, I mean, if it's kind of like inspired, is it inspired by any specific groups, or you mentioned Depeche Mode or something?
Well, I've always been, I'm going a little lighter than I normally do. I'm more into things like 9 Inch Nails, so a more hard edge type of electronic sound.
Right.
But I'm not doing that this time. I'm doing more of a poppy, less aggressive, less chainsaw driven type of a sound.
Right.
So
doing chainsaws, yeah.
If we've RPM guys, we'll do whatever, So
literal chainsaws. I'm sure there have been many on RPM albums.
I'm sure. Our chainsaw emulation, if nothing else. So no, yeah, it's going to be a little more accessible than that. So a little more melodic. And that's, again, something that's kind of outside what I normally do. But, we'll see. We got another week to figure it out.
Nice. And Karen, I won't put you on the spot and ask you about your RPM because It may happen, may not. I'm not going to put you on the spot. But do you have any projects that you'd like to let people know about these days, or things that you're working on?
What am I working on? I am currently working on a TV show concept. So we'll see how that goes. We are putting our fingers crossed for because I got I was one of the recipients for a funding with CBC. So we're currently working on that. Developing a TV show concept. So things that's going to take off.
Can you give us any hints about what it might be about? No, I don't want to. I'm curious, but okay, all right, no problem. Maybe off camera.
Yeah, I think I will give it to you to discover when it comes out. But music-wise, I guess what I would tell you on just get it started. That's the important thing, right? Don't put pressure on yourself. It's about knowing really why you're doing it. And not so much doing it for someone, you're doing it for yourself first. So like Ellen says, you might do it if you record the songs and at the end you're like, okay, I think I'm good, but I'm not gonna put it out there. That's fine. It's totally up to you what you want for yourself first, right? And but don't be afraid of the process, because that's where you discover a lot of things that you never knew you had inside of you. So don't be afraid of the process. Be okay with letting go and asking for help if you need help. I know it's hard with the times right now, but I'm sure there's ways, people are finding ways to work around all this, right? It's amazing what people are still able to create during crazy times like this, right? So I think it's about not limiting yourself and not being scared to ask for help and reach out to people, because that really helps a lot. It really helps a lot.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, if anybody's out there listening, the Discord is a great place to do it. If you don't know where to reach out to, lots of RPMers are jumping on any kind of questions that are always generally very open to collaborating or helping or in any way solving problems. They love solving problems. Any final words from anybody right now before we sign off? Thanks for joining us today. I think this has been really cool. I think a cool kind of casual check-in with people. Yeah, any final words, Amelia? Anything else?
You can do it.
I guess, Monica, anything?
Yeah, you can do it, and you can do it just as much as, the idea like, oh, they can do it because they're really talented or whatever. Everyone is as much, if you want to do it, do it.
Right. Mel, what do you got?
I want to echo something Karen said. Just you're doing it for yourself, mostly to start off with. So don't worry about other people's opinion about what they think, because that can really just about crush you sometimes. If people give their opinion on what you do, don't let that be your deciding factor. This is about your creative vision, about you expressing yourself the way you want to. So however that comes out is okay. It's perfectly fine.
Amazing. Great note to end on. Thanks, everybody. Karen, unless you want to say anything to all the RPMers last.
Sure. It's not about the destination, like Lindo says. It's not about perfection. It's about getting it done. It's about the journey, the experience, right? So, do it.
You can do it. Good luck, everybody. Yeah, have fun. That's all.